This is Land of Havilah, 1 Samuel 10. At the end of the last chapter, Samuel was standing in the street with Saul to give Saul a message from God. What is it? Verse 1. Then Samuel took the vial of oil and poured it on his head and kissed him and said, "Hasn't Yahweh anointed you to be prince over his inheritance?" Comment. That's the message. God has anointed you prince over his inheritance, meaning God's the one who did the choosing. God signifying that choice by having Samuel pour oil on Saul's head, or anointing him, as it says. Anoint is Hebrew mashach, from the same root as our English word Messiah. But the future Messiah won't be just any anointed one, he'll be the anointed one, HaMashiach. Up until now, only the high priest was anointed, but from this point on, the kings will be anointed as well. God anointed Saul prince, it says, which could also be translated leader, ruler, chief, officer, and noble. Notice God called Israel his inheritance. Saul will be prince over God's inheritance, it says, which could also be translated possession. You and I are God's possession and inheritance. God will destroy the present universe with fire, along with ungodly men, 2 Peter 3:7, but he'll preserve his godly ones as his own precious eternal possession and inheritance, Ephesians 1:14 and 1:18. We're keepers in God's eyes. Every leader should recognize that the people belong to God, not to himself, and he should treat them accordingly. Saul was a common person, not an elder or any kind of leader. He had nothing better to do than spend 3 days looking for lost donkeys. It's going to be a difficult transition mentally to think now that he's God's chosen prince over Israel. Therefore, Samuel's about to give Saul multiple signs that this is true. Coming up, Samuel says, "These will be the signs that I know what I'm talking about." Verse 2. "When you have departed from me today, then you will find 2 men by Rachel's tomb on the border of Benjamin at Zelzah. They will tell you the donkeys which you went to look for have been found, and behold, your father has stopped caring about the donkeys and is anxious for you, saying, 'What shall I do for my son?' Then you will go on forward from there, and you will come to the oak of Tabor. 3 men will meet you there going up to God to Bethel, one carrying 3 young goats, and another carrying 3 loaves of bread, and another carrying a container of wine. They will greet you and give you 2 loaves of bread, which you shall receive from their hand. After that you will come to the hill of God, where the garrison of the Philistines is, and it will happen when you have come there to the city that you will meet a band of prophets coming down from the high place with a lute, a tambourine, a pipe, and a harp before them, and they will be prophesying. Then Yahweh's Spirit will come mightily on you, and you will prophesy with them, and will be turned into another man." Comment. There were so many specifics in that prophecy we can't count them, and they're all going to occur today in that given order. When all this comes to pass, Saul will know for sure that his anointing was no mistake. And when Saul prophesies with the band of prophets, God's Spirit will come on him and turn him into another man. Now, notice for future reference in verse 5 that the Philistines have a garrison or fort somewhere nearby in the middle of Israel. Now Samuel says, "After all this happens to you," verse 7, "let it be when these signs have come to you that you do what is appropriate for the occasion, for God is with you." Comment. Most of what Samuel predicted was very specific, but that part was totally cryptic. What does Samuel mean when he says, "do what is appropriate for the occasion"? That's the type of non-specific command that could make a guy wonder whether he'll know what to do when the time comes. But Saul has no need to worry. God's in charge, as we'll see in the next chapter. Saul will do something spectacular because, as Samuel says, God is with him. Now coming up after Saul does what's appropriate for the occasion, whatever that means, Samuel says he should do the following. Verse 8, "Go down ahead of me to Gilgal, and behold, I will come down to you to offer burnt offerings and to sacrifice sacrifices of peace offerings. Wait 7 days until I come to you and show you what you are to do." It was so that when he had turned his back to go from Samuel, God gave him another heart, and all those signs happened that day. When they came there to the hill, behold, a band of prophets met him, and the Spirit of God came mightily on him, and he prophesied among them. Comment. That was the last of all the prophecies. All the many specifics of Samuel's prophecies came to pass before that happened. And all this was unmistakable confirmation to Saul that Samuel knew what he was talking about. We don't know what the band of prophets said, but it probably had something to do with confirming what Samuel said. And it was at this point when Saul met up with the prophets that God said he would turn Saul into another man. So the Spirit of God came mightily on Saul, it says, and he prophesied also. Then, verse 11, when all who knew him before saw that, behold, he prophesied with the prophets, then the people said to one another, what is this that has come to the son of Kish? Is Saul also among the prophets? One of the same place answered, who is their father? Therefore it became a proverb, is Saul among the prophets? When he had finished prophesying, he came to the high place. Comment, it doesn't say what Saul did at the high place, but all those confirming signs would move just about anybody to worship. Now Saul will meet with his uncle, who apparently didn't witness any of the prophesying. Verse 14. Saul's uncle said to him and to his servant, where did you go? He said, to seek the donkeys. When we saw that they were not found, we came to Samuel. Saul's uncle said, please tell me what Samuel said to you. Saul said to his uncle, he told us plainly that the donkeys were found, but concerning the matter of the kingdom of which Samuel spoke, he didn't tell him. Comment, Saul's keeping everything quiet, but coming up Samuel will gather all Israel to announce the news. Verse 17, Samuel called the people together to Yahweh, to Mizpah, and he said to the children of Israel, Yahweh, the God of Israel, says, I brought Israel up out of Egypt, and I delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the hand of all the kingdoms that oppressed you. But you have today rejected your God, who himself saves you out of all your calamities and your distresses, and you have said to him, no, set a king over us. Comment, the people demanded a king, Hebrew Melech, but in verse 1, God anointed Saul not king, but prince, Hebrew Nagid. So by calling Saul prince, Yahweh is refusing to call anyone else king but himself. But the people are refusing to call God king. They'd rather bow to a tall, handsome, impressive man than bow to God. God chose Saul, but now coming up there's going to be an election, Yahweh style. Yahweh will be the only voter, and he'll cast his vote by causing the lot to single out Saul from all the men of Israel as a testament to the nation that Saul is the one. Samuel begins the lottery by saying, as we go to verse 19, Now therefore present yourselves before Yahweh by your tribes and by your thousands. So Samuel brought all the tribes of Israel near, and the tribe of Benjamin was chosen. He brought the tribe of Benjamin near by their families, and the family of the Matrites was chosen. Then Saul the son of Kish was chosen, but when they looked for him, he could not be found. Therefore they asked of Yahweh further, Is there yet a man to come here? Yahweh answered, Behold, he has hidden himself among the baggage. Comment, back in verse 17, the people traveled to this meeting in Mizpah from all over Israel. Therefore they have baggage. Saul has hidden himself in the baggage. Verse 23, They ran and got him there. When he stood among the people, he was higher than any of the people from his shoulders and upward. Samuel said to all the people, Do you see him whom Yahweh has chosen, that there is no one like him among all the people? All the people shouted and said, Long live the king. Comment, they like the way he looks. God chose him by the lottery. He looks the part. He must be the one. Even Samuel kissed him back in verse 1, and he's paying high honor to him now. Samuel's hopeful like the people that this is going to work out. Verse 25. Then Samuel told the people the regulations of the kingdom and wrote it in a book and laid it up before Yahweh. Samuel sent all the people away, every man to his house. Comment, we don't know if the regulations of the kingdom are something new or if they're excerpts from the law of Moses, but here's what Yahweh said through Moses long ago about future kings in Israel. Quote, When you have come to the land which Yahweh your God gives you, and possess it and dwell in it, and say, I will set a king over me, like all the nations that are around me, you shall surely set him king over yourselves, whom Yahweh your God chooses. You shall set as king over you one from among your brothers. You must not put a foreigner over you who is not your brother. Only he shall not multiply horses to himself, nor cause the people to return to Egypt, to the end that he may multiply horses, because Yahweh has said to you, You shall not go back that way again. He shall not multiply wives to himself, that his heart not turn away. He shall not greatly multiply to himself silver and gold. It shall be, when he sits on the throne of his kingdom, then he shall write himself a copy of this law in a book, out of that which is before the priests the Levites. It shall be with him, and he shall read it all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear Yahweh his God, to keep all the words of this law and these statutes, to do them, that his heart not be lifted up above his brothers, that he not turn away from the commandment to the right hand or to the left, to the end that he may prolong his days in the kingdom, he and his children in the middle of Israel." End quote. Deuteronomy 17:14 through 20. Good advice for anybody. Certainly Samuel brought this passage to Saul's attention at some point. Now that all Israel has declared Saul king, what does Saul do? Verse 26. "Saul also went to his house to Gibeah, and the army went with him, whose hearts God had touched." Comment: a little army of volunteers followed Saul to his home in Gibeah. Verse 27. "But certain worthless fellows said, 'How could this man save us?' They despised him and brought him no present, but he held his peace." Comment: Israel's a kingdom now, but the kingdom isn't united. There's an anti-Saul party in the land. 1 Samuel 11 is next at landofhavilah.net. We'll find out there what Samuel meant when he said, "Do what is appropriate for the occasion, for God is with you." 1 Samuel 11. This is the map of 1 Samuel 10. The events of this chapter occurred in and around the land of Benjamin. The exact locations are obscure, including Zelzah, Rachel's tomb, Oak of Tabor, Hill of God, Mizpah, and Gibeah. Samuel has instructed Saul to go to Gilgal, about here, and wait 7 days until he comes, but before that happens, something's going to come up. 1 Samuel 11 is next.